Good morning, seventh graders. Happy Thursday. So today we're going to continue to dive into poetry. Looking back at what you guys have already learned, we looked at the I can statement. I can investigate poetry as a genre and I can create my definition of poetry. So we did that through investigating poetry, we did through the scavenger hunt, and then creating your own definition of poetry you did through the song. And so today we're going to do something a little bit different, but it's still going to help us, to investigate poetry. So I can inquire by making observations. So inquire means like find out, right? Like you're going to find out more about poetry by making observations. I can notice what poems look like, what topics they cover, and how different aspects of writing may be different than usual. So this is kind of what we're going to focus on today. We're going to do a little bit more observing, but you're going to pick your like a different poem today. Oops. Um, to do that. So when poets are studying poetry, they're really typically their poems are really different from each other, right? They're quite different. The things they talk about, the way it looks, it can really be different. And so, things that poets notice when they're studying poetry, they look at what kinds of subjects the poets write about, where the poetry appears. Is it published in a book? Is it published on its own on a website? Is it in a magazine? Where do they publish it? How the poetry looks on the page or the excuse me, or the structure of the text. So how long is the poem? What is the font size and the style? What shape is the poem in? um, Poetic forms means like what kind of poem did they use? Some of you guys might be familiar with, or like haikus. So like what was the form that they put the poem in? Line breaks, so like white space between the words, how did they space out the poem? And then punctuation and capitalization. You'll notice that they don't use capitalization and punctuation like we do in typical writing. It might look a little different. They also look for what poetry sounds like when it's read out loud. What are the rhymes? Does it have any rhythm? Does it repeat? Does it have alliterations, onomatopoeia? So, some of those literary devices that we're going to really get more into come later in this unit. Um, but so today, you're going to become the investigator, right? That's kind of what we're thinking about, is that you can inquire by making observations. So, what I want you to do is choose a poem. So, I copy and pasted this from your poetry packet. It's right here on page 22. So, you cannot do this one. I do not want you to do the run because we're going to do it here together. But you can do any other poem in the packet. Okay. So, I copy and pasted it into my document. And the first thing I'm just going to do is I'm going to read it. So, this is called The Wren by Barbara McCulley. He was small, not ready yet, frantic. Under the hedge, I caught him, took him home. My father wasn't sure. Wild birds, he said. We've tried so many times. But he ate what we made for him. And in 3 days, could fly around the living room. It's time, my father said. You have to let him go. Outside, he sat on my shoulder. I shook him off. He flew to a branch off of the maple, perched there, silent. His little eyes. I was a child. I called him. Back he came. Stood for a moment on my finger, then gone. I felt the spring of his legs all day. So, right away, a couple of things really draw my attention. So, I'm just going to make some notes here of some things that are drawing my attention. So, the first thing is that it looks like these are sentence fragments. Like, I'm not reading full sentences. Under the hedge is not a full sentence. Well, that could be a full sentence. Frantic is not a full sentence. Could fly is not a full sentence. And I'm realizing that um, some of these sentence fragments seem really powerful. Like this word silent seems pretty powerful. So I'm going to add that there. So some of the words seem powerful and they're really creating a picture in my head. Specifically, the word silent. I know that one did. The other thing I'm noticing is there's no punctuation, and there's also no capitalization. With these two, what did I do wrong there? I'm noticing that it makes for a weird read for me personally. Like it's a little bit hard for me to to read through it. Sorry, guys. Without the punctuation and the capitalization. It's just different, right? It's a different reading experience. Um, Another thing that I'm noticing is the title. Is that the title seems to be about the bird in the poem, right? They never mention what kind of bird it is, but you know that maybe they're mentioning it up here at the top. Okay. I'm going to make one more noticing um, that I noticed was that she's telling a story. At least what I think, right? That's the thing with poetry, guys. This is why I like it so much. Is that you don't ever. I don't really know for sure that she's telling a story about her childhood, but that's what I feel, right? That's the vibe that I got when I was reading. So you could notice here that I made about 5 noticings, right? These are my 5 noticings from the poem, and that's really what I want you guys to do today. A lot of times, I'm going to tell you um, that you're going to probably make concrete observations first, right? So, like, concrete observations means you can see them. So, sentence fragments, I can see. No punctuation, no capitalization, I can see. These bottom 2 things, they seem to be a little bit more, um, like deeper, right? You know, they're not something that I can see, but they're predictions or they're suggestions. So, I'm going to ask that you try to make a couple of um, make some concrete observations, but then also try and push yourself to make some non-concrete observations. Okay. Um, so your task today, I am going to I'm going to post this for you. So it's the things that poets knows when they're studying poetry. And what I want you to do is copy and paste, just like I did, into this document. However, if you feel like you would rather write it on the actual poem, like if you would rather stay in your poetry packet and just make observations on the side here, that's totally fine with me. But could you please just send me an email and let me know? Because then when I go to read them or grade them, I want to know um where it is. Okay. So the assignment is a little bit abstract, but I want you to really know that there's really not a right or wrong answer. Okay. There's really um not something that you can do right or wrong here. It's really just your opinion. What I'm going to do, I just thought of this, is I'm going to put this in here and I'm going to give you 3 concrete observations and then 2 deeper thinking observations. So your concrete observations are again those ones that you can see. And then the deeper thinking observations are the ones that you can't really see, but you're kind of pulling in deeper. So copy and paste your poem into here, um, and then you can make your observations on this side. Office hours today are back at normal times. I have a meeting at like 9, so it's a little wonky, but I'll be available 8:30 to 9 on the video or 9:30 to 10 on the video, and then this afternoon 12:30 to 1. Social hangout tomorrow, so please check your classroom for the time that that's taking place. I think that is all I have for you today, guys. So have a wonderful day, and please reach out if you have questions.